Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm looking forward to this call today because it is with someone I've followed and listened to at conferences and read many of his books, and it is Dr. Tom O'Brien. So we are going to talk about environmental toxins, hopefully about wheat sensitivity, autoimmune issues, leaky gut, endotoxicity, and more with a holistic approach at how to deal with all these toxins in our environment, because I'm on a mission to help you be fit and healthy from the inside out as you age. So stay tuned and we'll bring on Tom O'Brien. Listen in and send me in your questions so we can do a follow-up. All right. I am honored to have Dr. Tom O'Brien on the show, someone that's been a mentor from afar, never met him in person, but you've spoken at many of our conferences. I've read all your books. You're always in Switzerland or somewhere around the world on a video screen at our conference. But thank you for coming on the podcast to help us be fit and healthy from the inside out.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. It's a real pleasure to be with you. I mean, your audience is one that I relate to so well. I mean, I'm 72 now, so I'm not doing endurance things anymore, but I did a number of marathons and triathlons, and I love that world. I love the world when I get in a groove and I'm flying, that my feet touch the ground somewhere in there, but you just get in a zone, and so I recognize that world and love that world, and am honored to speak with you and your followers. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I know most of my listeners know my story, but I raced Ironmans and 50K races and marathon cycling events, all the long distance stuff. And then I got adrenal exhaustion, whatever you want to call it, in 2013. So it led me down the path of becoming more of a holistic coach with Paul Chek's certification first. And then the Nutritional Therapy Association, be a practitioner. And then I wanted to do the lab test. We test and not guess with Reed's functional diagnostic nutrition. So it's been ongoing. Now I'm in precision medicine course with Wild Health. And there's just, I think for athletes, as I said before we started, that to focus on being fit and healthy from the inside out, that we should be not just striving for performing our best in a race, but performing our best in life and recreating our current self now so we can be our best version of ourselves when we are older, when we're 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. And I love that Peter Attia and all these huge influencers around as Huberman are influencing people around the world. But people that are athletes, they think they're doing all the right things and they still are not really healthy. And then I know I do the functional lab testing with people and they're not so healthy. So I'm glad to get your perspective.
Here's a magic bullet for everyone. Having a peak performance musculoskeletal system, meaning that you are 8, 10, 12% body fat, you're strong, your muscles are good, you flow in whatever art form you're doing. Having a really good musculoskeletal system is often a detriment to having a healthy body, meaning your gut system is out of balance, your brain is highly inflamed. Now, your muscles are great, and I mean, you can fly in your own way, which is great, but that's only one system of your body. Classic example, for those of you that have had family members that died with dementia, how was their physical body functioning? For most of them, it was still functioning pretty good for all the years where their brain was going, right? Yeah. So my father-in-law died of dementia, and my ex's 2 uncles and 1 aunt, and they all were physically healthy, musculoskeletal wise. So it's great to be at the top of the field and at the top of performance, but you can't do it to the detriment of the rest of your body without paying a result.
And that's my goal, to have people as you on the show to help us show that there's things we need to think about and realize that we should maybe pay attention to what we're eating and our environment and the toxins that are everywhere, and really be self-motivated to be a health optimizer, because I see it all the time that people just exercise and I see what they're eating and they're just not really making the change of a holistic approach, what I call the holistic method, working on all those elements. So, and I always quote you.
I'm laughing because I'm remembering when I first started my medical education, I had been running marathons for years. And, so we moved to Chicago. I was in school in Chicago. And every Sunday I would do a distance run. I'd drive down to the lake. We lived in one of the suburbs at the school. I lived on campus. And I'd drive down to the lake. And on the way down, I'd stop at Dunkin' Donuts and buy a half dozen. And I would eat them on the way down, thinking, I'm going to burn it off. I'm going to be healthy. No, no, your blood sugar is going to go yo-yo like that. So
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I thought, I'm going to burn so many calories here. I can eat anything I want. No, you can't. Wake up.
Yep.
And now there's so much better technology available. I mean, even the simple things like a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. It's like a nicotine patch. You put it on your arm, and for 2 weeks, you can just take your phone. It'll tell you your blood sugar any time of the day or night, right?
Yep.
And so when you see that kind of evidence of what your lifestyle is currently doing to your blood sugar regulating system, then you have some options. Wow, really? So really? So if I eat like a big bowl of shrimp fried rice for dinner, and I got some vegetables in there, but my blood sugar spikes and crashes, maybe, yeah, but body language never lies. And so you'll see right away of what your current lifestyle is doing. And there's so many monitors. And as you said, Debbie, there's so many functional tests you can do now that'll give you the status. This is where you are right now.
Mhm.
Like it or not, well, I feel fine. I can still run my 610 miles. Well, good for you, but your blood sugar regulating system doesn't like it at all, man. You're pre-diabetic right now.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
So true. So you are, I always say your quotes, you've written many books and you've been involved in getting us more aware of not to have gluten and how gluten impacts everything. The autoimmune book. I know I always tell everyone one of your quotes in the books are always base hits creates a home run. And I think that is a huge thing for a lot of people when we're working on behavior change, creating awareness, but how to, you hear all this information out there and it's overwhelming, but how to actually take something and work on one thing at a time and create it a habit. So it's that behavior change that just becomes normal, brushing our teeth each day. So what are you focusing on now? You're doing a docuseries. Tell us a little bit what your focus is on now
Oh,
and how
thank
we need to change.
you. Yeah, this is to me so very important. Um, um, the the World Health Organization tells us that the last 10.3 years of our life in the US, the last 10.3 years are not healthy years. So it's a difference between your lifespan and your healthy lifespan.
Mm.
And it's 10.3 years right now, meaning the last decade of your life is with disability and medications. And that's the average. That's not the exception. That's the average.
Mm.
So what is it? How could we be in such a state when people think they're doing healthy things, but they still get diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis or with cognitive decline or with diabetes? How's that happening? And we were born and raised, every single one of us was born and raised in a house that had a box in the bathroom that we call the medicine cabinet. And we've been born and trained since day one that when you have symptoms, take a pill, take a prescription, get rid of the symptoms, and forget about it. Get on with your life. It's not how it works. But we're trained in focusing just on our symptoms, not on our function. And
Right.
if you live a symptom-free life, if that's your goal of a symptom-free life, you'll likely be in that average of the last decade of your life has disabilities. That we really need to live a functional life and look at the markers of function. For example, your immune system, Mrs. Patient, is the armed forces in your body. It's there to protect you. There's an Army, a Navy, an Air Force, a Marines, a Coast Guard. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, IgM, cytokines. They're different branches of the armed forces there to protect you. They only get called out when they need to protect you from something. And how do they do that? They produce inflammation. Inflammation is not bad for you. It saves your life every day. We literally would not be here if we didn't have the ability to create inflammation in our body, because we live in a world that's full of bugs and things that would take us down if they had the opportunity. So you need an immune system that gets activated to protect you from whatever the threat is. So inflammation is not bad for you. Excessive inflammation is bad for you. And that's what causes the collateral damage from the excessive inflammation. And the collateral damage causes tissue damage. It's like, for example, there are 4 different immune systems in your body, 4 different categories. There's the one in your gut. That's the main one. 70 to 80% of your immune system's in the gut, because the most common source of threat is what's on the end of your fork. So we are created in such a way to really protect us from whatever, our ancestors before agriculture 10,000 years ago, they were nomads. They followed the herds. That's how they found food. So they'd find something, they'd pick it up, they sniff it, they nibble at it, and if there was no threat, they'd eat it. But if there was bad bugs on there, you had to have an immune system in your gut to kill whatever it recognized as a threat. And if not, you died and you didn't reproduce. And so your prodigy died out, your lineage died out. But those that had good, strong immune systems in their gut, they survived and they reproduced. And that's the genes that we carry today. We have this whole defense system in our gut. That's why 70 to 80% of the immune system's in your gut. Okay, so, well, then there's another immune system in your bloodstream. In your bloodstream. We call those antibodies. And they're like special forces with high-powered rifles, laser-scoped rifles, just looking for one specific thing in the bloodstream that they've been told is a problem. Okay. Then there's another immune system in your brain. They're called glial cells. And if anything gets through the blood-brain barrier, the immune system in your gut, it's like the sheriff in town. He's got a 6-shooter on his waist, the old cowboy days. And if there's problems, he pulls out his 6-shooter and he fires his bullets. The immune system in your bloodstream, the special forces, they're snipers with high-powered laser rifles. But the immune system in your brain fires bazookas. If anything gets through that blood-brain barrier, the glial cells in the brain, they fire a bazooka. Boom, big explosion. Great, protects your brain. But when you've got a leaky brain, you've heard of leaky gut. Well, people get very common, they get leaky brains and they don't know it. But when you get a leaky brain and molecules get through that are safe in the bloodstream, but not safe to be inside the brain, and they get through into the brain, that activates that immune system firing bazookas. Boom, 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 boom. It's like a fireworks in there. And the bazookas, the explosions from the bazookas, because you've got a leaky brain, so it's constant 24/7, the exposures from the bazookas cause tissue damage, collateral damage. That collateral damage, damaging brain tissue, now your immune system makes antibodies to get rid of the damaged brain cells. Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every few years. Every cell in your body regenerates. How does that happen? Well, part of that mechanism, called autophagy, is getting rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for new cells. That's how we reproduce new cells. Your skin, your adrenal glands, your liver, your brain, doesn't matter. All the tissue functions that same way. And it's the antibodies that get rid of the old and damaged cells. There's a few methods, but one of them is the antibodies. So when you get leaky brain, explosions in the brain, damage to the brain tissue, your body makes antibodies to the brain to get rid of the old and damaged tissue. Now you do the test called the Neural Zoomer Plus.
Mhm.
It looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain, and it drops your jaw. Mrs. Patient, your brain's on fire, really bad, really bad. Well, wait a minute. So what's the result of that when people say, oh, I feel fine, I'm just a little stressed, you know, I forgot where I parked the car in the parking lot. What's the result of that? Blue Cross Blue Shield published in February of 2020. And nobody paid attention to this because that's when the virus came out. No one paid attention, but they said, we've got a real problem here. There was, in the previous 4-year period, there was a 407% increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds.
Wow.
In 4 years. It's like, wake up, people. Wake up.
Mhm.
That we are so much more toxic now, so much more inflammation, so much more leaky brain than ever before in history, that the numbers are astronomical and no one's paying attention to this. So we're doing this event because if people understand, you know, there's some doctors that talk about root cause medicine and they're going to find the root cause of your disease. There is no root cause. There are many causes. There's a root mechanism and only one. And that root mechanism is excess inflammation that's under the surface while you feel fine, but for years, killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. And you can measure this excess inflammation. And then you recognize, wow, wait, no, what? What? And then you realize, wow, my current lifestyle there must be something where I'm throwing gasoline on the fire to activate my immune system like this. Wow. Well, I'll just take some Advil and I'll be fine. No, you won't. No, you won't. It'll put a damper on it a little bit for a little while, and then it's going to explode on you because you can't put the fire out. You can't fool your immune system. You can't fool Mother Nature. Your immune system is there to protect you. So I'm going through these concepts with you to just get your brain to go, wait, what? What? Because I traveled the world and I went to 7 different countries interviewing the world leaders on this concept of inflammation as the root mechanism and where does it come from. Here's an example. This one is jaw-dropping. In households where there is no dishwasher, children in those households, the average is 19% of those children have allergies. In households that have dishwashers, 46% of the children have allergies. So, wait, what? It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Because when you hand wash your dishes and your silverware, sometimes there's a little crud left on the fork that you didn't get between the tongs of the fork. I'm not advocating leaving crud on your fork, but at the minuscule level, what this does is exposing children to non-toxic doses of bacteria. And it's called the hygiene hypothesis, that if you try to be squeaky clean in your life and not be exposed to any bacteria, you get really sick because you're not working your immune system. You got to work it a little bit. So I saw that study, 19% versus 46%. I said, whoa. And then I saw the study that said, you should never turn on a dishwasher when you're in the kitchen. Why? Because the hot water with the with the chemicals in the dishwashing detergent create a chloroform gas that can be measured throughout the house, highly elevated in the kitchen and rooms next to the kitchen. So you do 2 things. One, you get non-toxic dishwashing detergent. And 2, still, you run the dishwasher at night when everyone's in bed, whenever you can.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of little things like this that we want to teach people. And when you listen to the scientists talk about, you go, what? Wait, what? You know, and that's what I want. I want the what factor. Wait, what? So that it gets you to just start thinking about
Mhm.
things that you may not have thought about before.
Yeah. Stop and push pause and reflect.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it's always, I always say the Goldilocks effect, anything too little can cause deficiencies. Too much is going to cause imbalances, dysfunction, but the right dose for that acute stress create a positive response. But we
Yeah.
tend to have everything too much. And especially if people hear something's good, then they do it too much. So there is that right dose for even toxins.
Yes. 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 We need a strong immune system to protect us. Um, I'll give you another example. Your followers, age bracket, I'm assuming is mostly between 20 and 55, something
Well, we're
like
all
that.
50 and older now here.
Okay, okay, okay,
The
good.
aging population athlete,
Got it,
aging athlete.
got it, got it. They look, Chicago, 2016, 346 pregnant women. In the 8th month of pregnancy, they collected urine from them, and they measured 5 different phthalates in the urine. There are many more, but phthalates are chemicals used to mold plastic.
Mhm.
And we've heard of bisphenol A, BPA. It's a very common one. And there are many others, but they measured the top 5. And they put the results into quartiles, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest. And then they followed the offspring of those pregnancies for 7 years. And when the children turned 7 years old, the researchers reached back out and said, hi, it's time to do the test now. And they did Wechsler IQ tests on all these kids, the official IQ test. Now, there's not much in medicine that's all or every, but this was every. That's one of the things that was so startling. Every child whose mother was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean anything to anyone until you understand a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7-point difference is the difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's.
Mhm.
That this child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling.
Hmm.
Then you just go to Google and you type in phthalates and neurogenesis, nerve cell growth. Here
Mhm.
come the studies. The higher the phthalates, the lower, the more inhibition on nerve cell growth.
Hmm.
Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, when you put nail polish on, the phthalates from the nail polish, that's what makes them hard. The phthalates are in your bloodstream in 4 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
Now, there's no evidence that the amount of phthalates in the bloodstream from applying nail polish is toxic to humans. There is no evidence of that. But this stuff is accumulative in the
Mhm.
body. Or you put food in leftover storage containers in the refrigerator. The next day, the chicken's got phthalates on it because it touched the plastic, and the chemicals in the plastic ooze into the food.
Yeah.
Well, there's no evidence that the amount of phthalates that ooze into the food in plastic storage containers is toxic to humans. That's how they got away with this, that they pass a legislation that you have to prove the amount of chemical you're exposed to in a 24-hour period is toxic to humans. And it's not.
Yeah.
There is no evidence. But they're really smart. They paid off the senators, they paid off the representatives to pass this legislation that has no teeth whatsoever.
Hmm.
But this stuff is accumulative in the body. So what do you do when you hear stuff like this? You get glass storage containers in the kitchen, right? And give the Tupperware to your husband to store nails out in the garage, right? You
Yeah.
get organic nail polish, phthalate-free nail, but you just have to look. It's not hard, but there's so many of these little things. I interviewed Fran Drescher,
Hmm.
the nail.
Really? Yeah.
And, she's a 24-year survivor from uterine cancer. And she said, my oncologist saved my life. And she's a good friend now. And I asked her, why did this happen? She said, I don't know. It just does. And Fran said, no, it doesn't just happen. There has to be a reason. So Fran decided to dedicate and use her fame not to raise money for cancer research, but rather to raise awareness of where it comes from.
Wow.
And he founded Cancer Schmancer.
Oh,
And when you go to Cancer Schmancer, they're one of our sponsors for the event
good.
because they're just so great. You know, they talk about non-toxic dishwashing detergent and hand soap in the kitchen and shampoos. You know, and she said, you know, I used to smoke early in life. And then I realized one day I saw a picture and I realized just what I was doing to my lungs. And I said, why am I so angry at my lungs? Why would I do this to my lungs? And she said she never smoked a cigarette again.
Wow.
And she said, you treat your body like a temple and it'll serve you really well. And then you treat your home like a temple. You never go into a dirty temple or a dirty church. You know, you never. They're always spotless clean. And that's the way your home should be. And I started laughing. I said, Fran, you are the only other person I know besides me that does this. And she looked at me and I said, you know, when we rang the doorbell and your team welcomed us in, we couldn't come into the house till we put little blue hospital booties on our shoes. And she started laughing and laughing. I said, that is great, but that's a great model. Well, and she said, yes, of course, because my neighbor may have sprayed their lawn a couple days ago to kill weeds, and then it rained, or they used their sprinkler to water the lawn. So now it's on the sidewalk, and you park on the street, and you walk on the sidewalk to come up to my house. You now have weed killer on your shoes.
Yeah.
And you walk into my house on my carpet, there's now weed killer on my carpet. And my doggy walks around, you know, on the carpet. Now my doggy's got weed killer on his paws. Or the baby, you know, if you have a baby in the house crawling on the carpet, you said you leave the toxic world outside. And it's little things like that that you're going to learn that hopefully will, you know, some of them will resonate with people and say, oh, I'm going to try that, you know, whatever it should be. That's our goal.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I wanted to talk about this subject on our show because I do lab testing as an FDN practitioner, more of a health investigator. We look for different clues, various labs, intake forms, nutritional therapy, and put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I get a lot of athletes, endurance athletes that are training for long distance events, and I see their lab markers. I like the wheat zoomer, look at blood chemistry panel, CRP, looking at food sensitivities and the gut tests. And it's amazing how everybody, I haven't tested somebody that doesn't react to wheat. So someone asked me, is everyone high on the wheat zoomer for sensitivity to wheat? And CRP levels are high in a lot of people. And so anyways, I look at all this and keep going down different rabbit holes researching because I'll spend hours and hours looking and putting all of those pieces of puzzle together. And point is, so many people are exercising. They're able to go for 2-3 hour bike ride, run, swim, whatever their sport is, but they're not healthy on the inside out. They're causing inflammation, chronic inflammation from something. And I think people, again, as we talked about at the top of the show, think they're so healthy because they're able to go for a 5-hour bike ride. So what makes an athlete?
What you have to realize there, and this is a really good point you're bringing up, what you have to realize is that they're really healthy in their musculoskeletal system.
Yes.
And, you know, like high five to you, way to go. You know, you're pounding out a 2-hour ride at 15 to 17 miles an hour. I mean, to me, that's impressive. Way to go. But your blood sugar regulating system is in the toilet, or your thyroid is not functioning well, or you got inflammation in your brain. So it's not your musculoskeletal system that likely will take you down. You probably have a good one, but there's a 407% increase in Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds in 4 years. It's like, wake up. We have to realize there's so much more to this than what than how we feel in our
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. And that's why I do what I do and what I follow my purpose, because I thought I was doing all the right things and got broken and burned out from the inside out. And my labs were horrible. And I was doing Ironman Hawaii and doing marathons and PRing every race. But then I was a downhill spiral. Everything got messed up.
It's extremely, extremely rare to see someone who comes back without excessive inflammation in their brain as a model. The brain's the second most sensitive tissue. In my opinion, it's the second most sensitive tissue in the body. So when you do the neural zoomer plus, the blood test, and you can do it with a finger prick, it looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain.
Wow.
And it drops your jaw. It just dropped. What? And when you see this, because by definition, increased levels of antibodies means you're losing more cells than you're making. And when you have cognitive decline, when you have memory loss, oh, I'm getting older, I don't remember the way I used to, ha ha ha. Well, how old are you? Well, I'm 38. No, that's not supposed to happen. That's cognitive dysfunction. That means that brain cells are being killed off faster than you're making them. And that's the mechanism that causes Alzheimer's. Our government did a commission back in 2019. They said, we've got a real problem here. Medicare is going to be bankrupt in 25 years just from treating Alzheimer's because it's going up so quickly. So they put a commission together of the top scientists and to figure out what to do. And they did this beautiful drawing. It's a graph. It's just a beautiful, beautiful drawing to explain where Alzheimer's comes from. And it's excessive inflammation that's killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. While you feel fine, you can't tell it's going on. But this is going on for 20 to 25 years before you ever have a symptom. So you feel fine in your 20s and in your 30s, maybe, but you've been killing off so many brain cells while you feel fine, and there's no indicator, there's no way that you'd know if you don't test. And the only test that's comprehensive that I know of is the Neural Zoomer Plus. It's very comprehensive. You do that test and it'll be an awakening. Say, wow, wait, what? I've got 19 markers of inflammation elevated in my brain? 19? Yeah. So what do we do?
Exactly. Next question.
You start reducing the sources of inflammation. And here is a big picture view that puts it in perspective for you. Professor Alessio Fasano, we think this guy's going to win the Nobel Prize because it's him and his team that identified the mechanism of how this thing called leaky gut occurs. And they published on this in 1997, over 25 years ago. And they've been publishing on it ever since. Leaky gut and pancreas problems, leaky gut and brain cancer, leaky gut and liver problems, just hundreds of studies. He is a professor of medicine, Harvard Medical School, professor of nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health, the chief of pediatric gastroenterology, Mass General at Harvard, the director of the Celiac Research Center at Harvard, and the director of Mucosal Immunology Center. That's the lining of your gut, the lining of your brain, the lining of your lungs, Harvard. He's got 5 titles. Any one title is a lifelong dream for someone at the top of their game. He's got 5. He really is exceptional as a research scientist, and his ability to communicate is first class. So all the doctors, all the practitioners understand what he's talking about. He's not too far out there. I mean, he's got that depth of knowledge to talk way beyond all of us, but he doesn't, right? He makes it understandable. And he's written over 400 or 500 papers. I don't know, I lost count. And there will be 8 names on a research paper. And the last one, Alessio Fasano, meaning he put his stamp on it, that he approved it, right? This paper he wrote himself.
Hmm.
And he's always so careful of what he says so that he's not misquoted. But this one, he wrote himself. All disease begins in the leaky gut. The role of the protein zonulin in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases.
Hmm.
That's the title of the paper. Now, I forgot to tell you earlier, the Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death in the world today are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's always inflammation, except for unintentional injuries, accidents. Everything else is chronic inflammation under the surface that's been there for years and just killing off cells, killing off cells, killing off cells. And that's what we're talking about. That's what this event is all about, is to understand that mechanism, because then you know what to do to reduce it, to stop it in its tracks.
Yeah,
So
because it's always why, where is it coming from? Why is there
that's right. That's
so
right.
much inflammation?
That's right. So in that article, Fasano talks about the 5 factors in the development of the perfect storm. He refers to it as the perfect storm in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases. Number 1, genetics. That's the deck of cards you were dealt in this lifetime. And that's what you deal. Well, I've got the gene for Alzheimer's. That doesn't mean you're getting Alzheimer's. It means that that's a weak link in your chain. If you pull at the chain too hard, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your genetic weak link is, that's where the chain's going to break. Well, I've got the Alzheimer's gene. Well, okay, so don't pull on the chain so hard. Well, what does that mean? What's pulling on the chain? Inflammation is the pull on the chain. So the first of the 5 features in the perfect storm is genetics. That's the weak link. Number 2 are environmental triggers. Now, environmental triggers activate the immune system to protect you. So, and the most common source of inflammatory environmental triggers is what's on the end of your fork. That's most common. There are many, if you live in a moldy house, your brain's going down. Your energy is going down. There's no way around it. You're 24/7, you're sucking in mold that's going right up to your brain, activating the immune system, trying to protect you, creating more inflammation, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. So number 2 is environmental triggers. Number 3, when you have a lifetime of these environmental triggers that activate inflammation, you kill off the good guys and you encourage more bad guys in the gut, the bacteria in your gut. We call that dysbiosis. That's the geek term for it. But all it means is too many bad guys, not enough good guys. You can't do Coca-Cola. The only thing that Coca-Cola is good for is to clean the battery acid on your cars. That it's great for that, or to clear the rust off of the iron railing outside. It's great for that. I used to talk to kids that wanted to drink Coke. I said, next time you come in, bring me a can of Coke. Don't open it, just bring it, and bring a dime. And they'll, okay, Mom, can we go back and see Dr. Tom? So they come back with their dime. And I said, okay, open the Coke. Good. We're going to do 2 tests. The first test is that if you can take a big sip of Coke and you can leave it in your mouth for 2 minutes, and we'll watch on the watch the second hand go around. If you can leave your mouth for 2 minutes, I'll give you $5. And they go, oh, yeah. And and they put it in their mouth, and I got the parents' permission to do this beforehand. And they put it in their mouth, and about 15 seconds into it, you see the look on their face starting to change a little bit. And 30 seconds, 45 seconds, they're getting really worried because it's burning. It's an acid, and it's burning in their mouth. And I've never had a kid last 2 minutes. So I've got a little bowl. Okay, spit it out if you want to. And they spit it out. That's experiment number 1. Experiment number 2 with Coca-Cola, put that dime in the can of Coke. Now, first, look at the dime. You see how there's the head of the person on there? Yeah. And you see on the other side, the design of the building? Yeah. And you see around the edge, all those little lines? Yeah. Okay, Put the dime in there, and tomorrow at this time, you're going to pour the Coke out in a glass with the dime, and then look at the dime again. And it eats the line. There's no lines left on the dime within 24 hours. That's what it's doing to your gut every
Wow.
time you drink that stuff, right? So environmental triggers cause dysbiosis. That's number 2.
Okay,
in
wait,
Fasano.
so people would ask right there, what if I drink Diet Coke?
Yeah, it's the same. Give me a break. There's less sugar. It's actually worse because the artificial sweeteners they use kill the good bacteria in your gut. They don't just encourage bad bacteria to grow, they kill the good bacteria. They wipe out and all of those artificial sweeteners do that. Just Google the artificial sweetener you want to check and microbiome. So aspartame and microbiome. Just look at the science on this and you'll see it right away. So that's number 2. Number 3, when you've got too many bad guys and not enough good guys in your gut, so number 1 is genetics. Number 2 is environmental triggers. Number 3 is too many bad guys in the gut, not enough good guys. Mrs. Patient, your digestive system is a tube. Starts at the mouth, goes to the other end, about 20, 25 feet long, winds around in the center there. The inside of the tube is lined with cheesecloth. And there's a reason why it's lined with cheesecloth. When you take a bite of a hamburger, most people will chew it 3-4 times and gulp it down, as opposed to chewing it 10, 15, 20 times like we're supposed to get the digestive enzymes from our saliva on the meat. So we'll gulp it, chew 3-4 times and gulp it down. And that hamburger can't get into your bloodstream. It's got to be broken down into really tiny pieces. If you think of a pearl necklace, the acid in your stomach undoes the clasp of the pearl necklace. Now you have a string of pearls. And our enzymes act as scissors to cut that pearl necklace smaller and smaller, snip, 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 until you're down to each pearl of the pearl necklace. We call that an amino acid. Those are the building blocks of muscle and the building blocks of our tissue, bone tissue, brain cells, liver cells, muscle cells. Are the amino acids. Now, those amino acids fit right through the cheesecloth and go into the bloodstream. And then, bloodstream is just a highway. As soon as they get in there, zoom, they're gone on the highway. Everything's going the same direction. There's no lanes of traffic, but everything's going the same direction, bouncing around in there. So when you have dysbiosis, number 3, of the perfect storm, too many bad guys, not enough good guys, it creates an inflammatory environment inside the gut, and that inflammatory environment tears the cheesecloth. When you tear the cheesecloth, bigger clumps of the hamburger get into your bloodstream before they've had a chance to be broken down small enough. We call those macromolecules. And these macromolecules get into the bloodstream. That's the leaky gut. And these big molecules get into the bloodstream. And then that's number 4. And then your immune system, trying to protect you, says, whoa, what's that in the bloodstream? I better fight that. Now you make antibodies to beef, or to tomatoes, or to raspberries, or to organic carrots. It doesn't matter what the food is. When you've got tears in the cheesecloth, the leaky gut, and these big molecules get through into the bloodstream, your immune system, trying to protect you, creates inflammation to fight that stuff in your bloodstream. That's chronic systemic inflammation, number 5. The Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. This is the mechanism. So here we have Fasano, this senior researcher, brilliant doctor, who writes the paper by himself. All disease begins in the leaky gut. That's where the chronic inflammation comes from that eventually manifests as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or rheumatoid or multiple sclerosis or Hashimoto's or chronic fatigue or acne. or psoriasis. It doesn't matter the symptoms. This is the primary mechanism. Just depending on where the weak link is in your chain is where your symptoms will be. And when you get this, when you really get this, you start asking different questions about all of the choices that you make in your life. Well, should I buy that toothpaste that I've used for years? Well, wait a minute. I remember seeing in the inflammation equation, that's our event, I remember seeing the inflammation equation that the signs on the toothpaste, and you look for it, and there it is, warning, do not swallow. If swallowed, call National Poison Control Center. And this is what you're putting in your mouth every day, and you're giving it to your kids. Really? It's because you never thought that your government would allow this kind of stuff to happen. But it's on the label. Just read the label of your toothpaste. So that's the perfect storm in the development of 14 of the 15 top causes of death. That's why, in my opinion, everyone needs to watch this event. It's 9 days, 1 hour a day for 9 days, so that you can understand these principles and you have your family or your friends or your buddy watch it with you. Say, hey, register for this thing. It's all free. It's all free. Because when you have a friend that's thinking about the same kind of things that you're thinking about and kind of wrestling with these ideas, and you guys talk about it, you support each other. You kind of carry each other. You're accountable to somebody, that you're not just blowing it off because you're just lazy or it's just too threatening. So you're accountable to a friend. So that's what we're doing. And that's why we're doing it, is to change the way you make decisions about everything for you and your family and in your home, that goes in your body and in your life.
Yeah, that's amazing information. And I realize how much I've learned from you over the years. Because I always say that, but you didn't mention the shag carpet to the Berber rug carpet analogy.
That's
I
right.
always use that one.
I'm
That's
glad.
important.
Yeah, that
But
is good. That's celiac disease, that when the inflammation in your gut pulling on the chain, if the weak link in your chain is the genes for celiac disease, then the shag carpeting in your gut gets worn down and you develop Berber. And when you develop Berber, that's when you can't absorb your vitamins or minerals very well at all. And that's usually the shortest kids in the class. They have what's called failure to thrive. Now, it's not restricted to that, but that's a very common sign you'll see. Kids who are at the shorter end of the height scale for their class. It's very common to see. But yeah, that's when you have Berber.
so do you find that so many people in North America versus Europe and other parts of the world are reactive to wheat when they do a wheat zoomer type of test? Is it very common?
That's a really good question. And we can go back to Fasano for that. And that same article, he talked about it. The two most common triggers for tearing the cheesecloth in the gut are exposure to too much bad bacteria in your gut, too many bad guys, not enough good guys, and it's exhaust called LPS, lipopolysaccharides, and gluten. Those are the two most common triggers that tear the cheesecloth in the gut. Not eggs, not soy, not dairy, not lectins, not nightshades, gluten. It's the only food, and the science is really, really clear on this. It's the only food that activates the immune system in the gut every time you swallow it. And it's because the humans don't have the enzymes to break down wheat completely. So we can't break it down into each pearl of the pearl necklace. The best that we can do is clumps of pearls. Those are called peptides. But they're just clumps of pearls of the protein of the pearl necklace. And that's the best that we can do. Well, in your gut, you have sentries standing guard. I like to think of the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with those big hats. They're just standing there. They're dormant. They're not doing anything at all. But do not mess with those guys. They are highly trained and they'll kill you quickly if they feel a threat. So we have these soldiers standing guard inside our gut, and they're watching everything that comes out of the stomach into the intestine. And they're just watching because our ancestors walking around trying to find food, they pick something up and they eat it. And if there were a bug in the food that comes out of the stomach, a bacteria coming out of the stomach into the first part of the small intestine, the soldiers standing guard immediately do two things. Immediately, within 5 minutes, it's done. First, they activate more zonulin, the protein that creates leaky gut. Why do you get leaky gut when your immune system thinks there's a threat, a bacteria coming in? Because when you get leaky gut, the cells open up a little bit and water comes into the lumen of the intestine inside the tube. You get more water coming in to wash out the threat with the poop. Leaky gut's great for you. It's life-saving. It's really life-saving. Excessive leaky gut is bad for you. So that's the first thing it does. And the second thing it does is it activates the major amplifier of inflammation called NF-kappa B. So you get lots of inflammation to kill this thing, and you get more water to wash it out. And that happens, and Fasano talks about it in that article extensively. And then Dr. Maureen Leonard, a famous gastroenterologist, also at Harvard, she read over 60 research papers on this topic of this sentry standing guard. And she wrote the summary in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And she said, gluten activates zonulin and transient leaky gut in every human who eats wheat. This occurs in all humans. That's how she said it. This occurs in all humans who consume wheat. Without exception, every single time. Now, why? Because the sentry standing guard sees this peptide coming out of the stomach that looks like the outside shell of a bug. The amino acid structure of that peptide, the pearls of the pearl necklace, they're put together in a way similar to what looks like the outer surface of a bug. And that's what your immune system will always protect you from, without exception, is to kill any threat that might come in. That's how we survived. That's how our ancestors survived. You can't get away from it. Well, I feel fine when I eat wheat. It doesn't matter how you feel. And the ratio is 8-to-1. For every one person that has gut symptoms when they eat wheat, there are 8 people that don't. They get thyroid symptoms or brain symptoms or skin symptoms, but they feel fine when they eat it because they don't get gut symptoms. That's not the weak link in their chain.
Yeah.
The weak link in their chain is their thyroid, or the weak link in their chain is the saran wrap around their nerves called myelin, and they get MS. Or the weak link in the chain is the collagen in their joints, and they get rheumatoid.
Plane.
So the ratio,
Helicopter, hold on.
oh, I couldn't hear the plane here. So the ratio is 8-to-1 though. So it doesn't matter if you feel bad. Just do the test. Do the wheat zoomer. It's a very, very accurate test. And you can do a finger prick and do the wheat zoomer and the neural zoomer plus at the same time. There are 4 tests that I have every person take before I'll ever talk to them if they want to see me.
Yeah, that's what I love to do with clients, but I'm always skeptical of those finger prick versus getting the lab to draw blood. Is there research of the comparison of two? Like,
Oh, there
getting a
is.
full-
There is. Published by Mayo Clinic. They acknowledged that the sensitivity and specificity is 97 to 100% with both the pinprick and the blood draw.
I have planes, helicopters. I don't know what's going on outside Elfin Forest. So,
Well, just so you know, I can't hear them.
oh,
So
okay.
it's
They're in
a
my
problem at our
ears.
end.
That's right. I can't hear anything when they go over. You can't hear them, but So I think that's important information. Test and not guess. Learn a ton from your docuseries. Now, this comes out. Give us the dates of when people can be watching for this and sign up.
This comes out in a couple of weeks on April 4th, but it will be evergreen, meaning it'll be fresh and available all the time. So if you watch it and then you see a friend a month from now, you can say, wow, I saw this thing, man. It was really great. Wow. Yeah. And if you go to the inflammation equation.com forward slash, is it low carb? Was that right? Was that
Low
right?
Carb Athletes, the name of the podcast.
Yeah, low carb. So it's the inflammationequation.com forward slash low carb. All one word like that. And register. It's all free. And I'm giving you a gift.
Hey, gifts.
When you register, we're giving you the full interview with Fran
Wow.
Drescher right away.
Oh, good.
So that
That'll be good.
you can watch this interview and you laugh, and at times you get tears in your eyes because of how people are suffering from just not knowing some of this basic information. And
Yeah.
then you laugh again. I mean, she's just a fabulous human being. And it's
Great.
really wonderful, to be in her presence. But anyway, so I decided, you know what, guys, here's that whole interview. Just
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Oh, good.
Just
Well, thank you for continuing to follow your passion and being on this mission. Since when was your first summit you started? Because I know I used to listen to Sean Croxton years ago when I first started getting into podcasts.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. The first summit was called the Gluten Summit. It was the
Yeah.
first summit online ever.
That was my first introduction to all of this. You were the man, you and Sean.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a wonderful event and just changed the paradigm for people to think about how wheat might affect them. And it's available at theglutensummit.com. I mean, it's great to watch it. It's all free. It's all free.
Hmm.
And this is my third event in 12 years.
Wow, good for you. Well, I know you've got other appointments to get to, so I'll let you go, but let us know when you're back in town and we'll meet you up at Reed's house for one of his gatherings and see you
Well, I would
out
look
of.
forward to that, Debbie. Thank you so much.
Good. All right. Good luck. And I look forward to watching this docuseries.
Thank you.